Welcome back to another episode of the Randy Wilson Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Wilson, and today I have Hayden Fisher, who is an attorney here in Virginia, as a guest on our show. Before we get into having our discussion with Hayden, I want to just thank you guys for continuing to stay tuned to the show. Appreciate if you would hit the follow button and subscribe to the show if you haven't so far. And again, just thank you for your continued support. Very excited today to talk with Hayden. This podcast will be able to be listened to everywhere podcasts can be consumed other than SoundCloud. But I'm going to encourage you to go over to YouTube. So Stitcher, Spotify, Libsyn, Google, Apple. Feel free to go over to any of those platforms. You can also go over to randywilsonpodcast.com. Hayden, a lot of times we don't lift our own platforms. We're constantly promoting and marketing to others. So I definitely want to encourage people to go over to randywilsonpodcast.com and you can see the whole list of podcast episodes that have been recorded. How you doing today, Hayden?
Doing great, doing great.
Happy to have you on the show. And it's been 2023 was a busy year for you, obviously.
It was a very busy year, very unpredictable year. There's a lot of things that happened I wasn't planning on, but it was really humbling and very productive as well. And I just enjoyed all the different people I met along the way in 2023.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to a great 2024.
Yeah, for those of you who do not know, Hayden was a candidate here in Chesterfield County, the Senate district. Now, it was probably larger than just Chesterfield County. What was
It's in District 15, which is they all got redrawn as you know prior to last year. So this was the first race in this new Senate 15. It was all the south side of Richmond, and then North Chesterfield, I guess southern part of North Chesterfield, going down into Chester, the town or village of Chester, whatever they call it, then all the way down Route 10, all the way to Hopewell. So basically, it was like that sliver of Chesterfield County, east of SD 12, which is where Glenn Sturtevant.
Very, very large district. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Interested in getting some feedback on that experience. I'm going to share some of my thoughts and observations as well, and also kind of assess and kind of gauge what your political future may look like. But before we get into the politics of it all, folks, first off, we want to make sure they understand you have your own attorney firm and you serve the constituents here in Chesterfield County, and I would imagine you probably serve people throughout Virginia. So I just want to talk a little bit about that. Let me touch on a few things from his bio, because his bio is very extensive, by the way. You were a VMI graduate, as we were just discussing before the show. You also attended Washington and Lee School of Law. We have something in common there because we both attended ODAC schools. And you returned to Richmond, though. You've been in Richmond here now for a few years. But why is this the place that you choose to practice?
That's a good question. So I finished law school in 1999. And at the time, but W&L was pretty highly ranked, and there were students from all over the country. And there were law firms coming from all over the country. And for me, I wanted to come to Richmond. It was kind of the best of both worlds. It wasn't too big of a city, but it wasn't too small either, and provided a lot of opportunity. I wanted to go a place where I could stay and grow and not bounce around. Like some of my friends would go to DC, Atlanta, Charlotte, San Francisco, all over New York, and then go to a big city and end up, bouncing around a little bit, end up with multiple licenses in different states. I kind of wanted to find a place where I could become a trial attorney quickly, get in the courtroom early, and set some, groups. And that's kind of where I'm from anyway. I'm from all over the place, but that's where I had a lot of roots. So
yeah, similar to me. I mean, when I got involved in the healthcare space, I graduated college. Because I'm originally from North Carolina. My family primarily now resides around the Charlotte area. And when I came to Virginia, originally to grad school at Virginia State University, I just found this to be an area where if you wanted to serve, there was work to do and there was opportunities to do it. And I was able to make a reasonable income as a younger person here doing work that I enjoyed. And it just kept me here. And you know what they say about Virginia is for lovers. And so if you ever start building relationships and things like that, and you kind of can just get, ingrained in the soil here. You've received numerous awards. We both were top 40 under 40. And it looks to me, Hayden, and just kind of looking at your resume, that community is um, something that's very important to you. I'm also familiar with you just from being, if I'm correct, you're a partner owner in the restaurant industry, if I'm correct as well. Is that right?
Yes, right. Currently, Vagabond,
Yeah.
Lester Johnson, and Jimmy Budd, and Mark Ingraham.
Those are some good guys. That was a good. Didn't you used to be a partner? Did you have involvement with F.W. Sullivan's or Lady Nolan's ever before?
Yeah, Jake Crocker and I, we both started this too. FW Sullivan was the first one, Lady Owens was the second one, and we did some other stuff. And then I did Vagabond with Lester because Lester and I went to VMI together, both class of 95. So when that one came open, he started Mama J's the same year we started Sullivan. So I went to him and we had some conversations before that, and it's kind of like, well, hey, this is here. Do you want to do it? And so we did it.
You probably know Andre. Do you know Andre? Andre is my wife's cousin. He went to be he's a VMI graduate.
Yeah, that sounds really familiar.
Andre Thornton.
Yeah, that sounds, yeah.
Yeah, I know him.
Pretty sure I know the name for sure.
Yeah, I think he played football at VMI. I believe him and Lester are good friends. So let's just talk community a little bit, because before we get into politics, which I want to talk about, I definitely want to talk politics, and I want to talk about some of the legal work you do. But let's start in the community. Like, what is your passion for community? And I say that just because I think I see you as a you're a public figure. I mean, you're an attorney, but you have a solid chance of being a politician one day. I think that's something that appears that you have ambition to do. Let's start first with community. Like, what does community mean to you? What's the value of community for you?
The community to me is just sharing space and sharing opportunities and sharing everything with people around you. And I think it's great to meet new people. People from different backgrounds come together, help each other out, learn from each other. And that's just the whole sense of community to me is about finding that camaraderie and that spirit of humanity that we all share together. And we can all come from different walks of life, but we can all learn from each other. And that's just something I grew up with. And my dad was a PTA president, my mom was a teacher, but this is always involved in different things. And I kind of grew up around all of that. My first memory was in Emporia, Virginia. So, which is interesting because my dad was from California, my mom was from Montana. We ended up in Virginia. They bounced around. It was kind of just a dot along the way for them. But that was the first place where I went my first memory. And so I just remember going to PTA meetings with them and my mom being a teacher, my dad being a PTA president, trying to improve the schools down there in Greensville County. Frankly, them not understanding any of the real race issues at all because of being from the West Coast and from Montana. They just didn't know what it meant. And I went to Greensville County Public Schools, K through 6, and so just being around all kinds of different. And then my grandparents were up in D.C. My grandfather worked in D.C. They lived in Fairfax. So we're up there. My mom was the oldest of 6 girls, so she's kind of like the deputy mom. We're up there on the weekends a lot and just holidays, everything else. So I just grew up around a lot of different type of people. And so community to me is it can be a number of different things. It's physically, it's geography. It's who do you live around, and you all sharing the same space, and you should try and share it together and help each other and all that kind of good stuff. And then also communities can be larger than that too. So yeah, it's just something that's always been I've always been in my nature.
What inspires you to be an attorney? I'm assuming that your parents were not.
My parents were not attorneys. I'm the first attorney in my family, which you see a lot of attorneys and there's like attorney after attorney after attorney.
Mhm.
For me, it's just something I always wanted to make a difference. I always had a sense of justice and seeing injustice
Mhm.
growing up, especially in Emporia and Greenville County at the time. And I got a lot of speeding tickets my senior in high school, and so I was in court all the time, and like I just felt so helpless there. I'm like, I need to do this. I need to learn this stuff. And
Yeah.
then I think just loving watching the stuff on A Few Good Men, movies like that. I don't know. I just always gravitated towards it. So
Your firm is Hayden and Fisher, correct?
it's actually Fisher Law PLLC.
Okay, and you're a partner within the organization.
Yeah, I'm the only person right now.
Okay.
I do everything.
Talk to me a little bit about the type of cases that you like to take. Are there any cases that you will not take? Talk to me a little bit about how your practice operates.
All right. So the only thing I really don't do any of, I don't do any serious criminal. And by that I mean anything that's like, rape, murder, robbery, burglary, those kind of things. I do traffic DUI, I'll do protective order type of stuff, small misdemeanor type of stuff. I don't get into any serious criminal. I did one criminal jury trial one time. I won it, but I never wanted to do it again afterwards. On the civil side, I started off with a firm that did basically what they call insurance defense, representing insureds of insurance companies. That can be commercial insurance companies. My first trial, I represented um, a mall where there was an ice and snow issue. Somebody slipped and fell in the parking lot. And then it could be Allstate Insurance Company was a client. So, one of their insureds runs into the back of somebody and they get sued, and Allstate hires a lawyer to defend them under their policy. I did a lot of that stuff in the beginning. Then I expanded out doing more. Now I do more plaintiff's work. I represented the injured party, but then I do a lot of business litigation. I do a lot of defamation. I've got a defamation case in Fairfax right now. I've got I've done like commercial, I call them professional divorces, basically a small business disputes between partners and things like that. Um, we get into business conspiracy, tortious interference, those kind of claims. I've done a fair number of those claims. And so business consulting, it's just kind of like my life. It just kind of goes all over the place. And I've done a lot of it over the last 20 some years. So I'm experiencing all of it. And it just kind of ebbs and flows as to every year. It just depends on who comes in out. In terms of what cases I'll take, I won't take a case I don't believe in. And if I'm on the defense side, unless it's somebody's trying to work it out, and like say somebody says, "Well, I made a mistake. I'm just trying to get this resolved," I kind of will step in that those type of cases. I cannot be passionate about something I don't believe in, or a company I don't believe in, or a claim or case I don't believe in. So I don't think I'd be effective doing that. So other than that, I have to take on all kinds of different stuff.
Something you said just now that stands out to me. So you will not take a case that you take cases that you believe in. You take cases that you have some sense of passion about seeing change. If
Right.
if you outright see a case where a person's guilty, and if you know outright that a person's guilty, do you not have motivation to try to prove their innocence? Am I understanding that correctly or no?
Yeah, if I felt they were innocent, that'd be one thing. And then the one criminal trial I did feel he was innocent, and he got convicted at the district court level. We appealed to the circuit court. I got a jury trial in a misdemeanor case. It was very public. It was in Roanoke. They brought the cameras in and everything else. This guy, they just made a story out of him, and then the kind of courts went along with it. But I ended up getting him acquitted
Mhm.
at trial. But it was just I just don't like the criminal stuff. But yeah, I can't get behind a case if I don't believe in it.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Do you do any pro bono work?
Yeah, I do. Not mostly in the child support, child custody, visitation type of area where I'll take on a case, even though I know that should put this out on a podcast, but every now and then there'll come a case come along where I just feel like representation is needed for the child's best interests,
Yeah.
and I have a soft spot in my heart for wanting to help out people,
Understandable.
not
Understand.
in like a single moms and things like that. If they just don't have the resources, and it's just the legal system can be brutal if you don't know how to navigate it.
Yeah.
So
No, very understandable. I mean, a lot of nonprofit organizations I've been affiliated with in some capacity who've had attorneys on the board. I've always seen in some capacity or other, you know, some type of pro bono work for very much the same reasons that you just shared. Homelessness, particularly as an example. Similar with anytime the children's involved. So I mean, I think that's very commendable. Do you serve currently on any nonprofit boards?
that's a good question. I have to think about it because it's been a while since I've been on a board. I don't think I'm in any boards right now.
Mhm.
I'd have to really think about what am I, let's see. It's a good question.
Well, I say that because I mean, because your attorneys are highly sought after to lend their expertise in the voluntary capacity, particularly for a board. And to some degree, that's pro bono work in itself because of just needing your type of representation on a board to provide perspective within the legal framework that most of the other individuals at the table are not as experienced. And so somebody who's watching this interview could very well say, hey, I like that guy. I know, I remember seeing that guy. He would be we'd appreciate him being very suited to support our mission. And that in itself is pro bono work just by lending your time. So that's part of why I asked.
Yeah, I've done some of that recently last year as well. And I've been on nonprofit boards before, and I've run a nonprofit actually.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think right now I'm on any boards.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, people call me with questions and things like that, and I'm always usually happy to help them out as best I can.
Do you ever get involved with cases around? I mean, fentanyl is now just like the new popular drug, I guess, street drug. Have you had any involvement with that? And I'll wait till you answer because there's a reason why that's the case.
I have been involved in fentanyl in cases, and a lot of times people end up consuming fentanyl unknowingly because it gets mixed in with other things.
Mm-hmm.
That's when it can be really, really terrible. I mean, it's a terrible drug anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really scary and it's all over the place now.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's crazy. I've seen you see so much in the media with it, and I definitely believe we know for a fact that it is it's a highly used drug. Just as you said, sometimes people may not even know they're consuming it, and I don't want to look. It is what it is. It's bad, but I've also seen media. Sometimes the information that we receive and we consume through the media is intentionally driven by the media too. And so I've had conversations with attorneys where I know they've represented on behalf of certain media, platforms on behalf of helping them with how they kind of push these stories. But that's a different type of attorney, obviously, than you are. You're pretty much, when you say trial attorney, and I want to make sure I ask this question for those who are listening who may not know exactly what that means. You're primarily you're a criminal focused attorney, is that correct?
Civil, mostly civil.
Mostly civil. Okay.
But civil litigation would be like the business litigation, the defamation, the personal injury type of stuff, all that kind of, it's all on the civil side. And then I'll do criminal on the misdemeanor side, traffic DUI.
Okay.
Small, light criminal stuff on the misdemeanor side. I generally don't get involved in the felony side.
Okay. Do you cook at home? Are you a cook?
Yes.
Do you enjoy cooking?
Well, I think when COVID hit, you had to learn to cook whether you liked it or not.
Yeah, yeah.
So I hadn't really cooked in years because being in the restaurant business, it's easy to go in there and push a button and wait for the food to come out.
Yeah.
So you kind of get spoiled that way, but yeah, I've gotten much more into it over the last few years.
Part of why I asked, I'm curious.
I made some eggs this morning.
Yeah, I'm curious. So, like, what led to your interest in the restaurant business industry?
Well, I was involved with some nonprofits, and I was involved with the performing arts, and we were having a hard time finding restaurants and bars that would work with nonprofits for like socials and things like that. And I'm sitting there thinking, we want to bring you a bunch of people to your place. Why is it so difficult? That's kind of how it started. And then I worked in bars and restaurants, kind of growing up in my early years, like, the college type of years in the summers and on breaks and stuff like that. And so, I just always I like being around the people, especially I don't think people realize this. Law is very solitary.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I'm in court, I give my client a notebook to write stuff down or a legal pad, but it's me focusing on the jury, focusing on the witness, focusing on what's coming up next, making sure I have the documents ready, making sure I understand my trial outline, what questions I've got. So I'm kind of like the driver in the seat there where I've got a dashboard I'm watching of things going on. But then it's just exciting and fun, but also it is very solitary. And if I'm writing a brief, I taught at U of R for a while, too, U of R Law School.
Yep, 6 years.
Writing. Which is basically brief writing and legal writing and things like that, which I enjoy as well, and research. That's very solitary. So law is it's very solitary. Even when you're around people, it's just because you're basically, it's like, playing a sport. You're involved, there might be, if you're on the basketball court, there might be a lot of people in the stands, but you're focused on what you're doing,
Yeah,
and your teammates too, but, you're not focused on all the people around you.
yeah,
So being around the restaurant business, it just provided kind of a social outlet that after I left my original firm, I didn't have in my traditional workplace. And so that was, I think, was part of it. Part of it, you just follow things and opportunities develop. And I've always been into music. And so I did the music at Sullivan's early on, Lee Nolan's. And so that was an outlet for that as well.
yeah. Sounds like it's therapeutic.
Yeah, my dad was a DJ growing up, so I was always grew up around music. And so yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, Lady Nolan's, by the way, was one of my favorite restaurants in Richmond. Is it ever gonna, it's not, is it ever coming back?
I don't think so. I think that, when things run their course and it's not, COVID killed Sullivan's. And then my partner, Jake Crocker, reopened that for a little bit. But it was during that time, it was really hard to find um, staff, and basically people because everyone got out of the restaurant business during COVID and then trying to find people. A lot of people moved on. A lot of people moved to other cities that were open, or people got into different construction, people got into different jobs. And so for a while, it was hard to find people. And I think he was kind of over at that point too. And so he made that decision I hadn't been involved because I kind of stopped being involved around 2000, end of 2014 because I had to get back to focus on my law practice when my legal assistant moved to Virginia Beach.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it was
but
one of my places.
it was great.
I love the fried oysters there. That was one of my favorite things there.
Awesome. Yeah, I miss it.
And the atmosphere was really cool. The chalk, I mean, it was just, I kind of hated to see that place go. COVID
Yeah.
obviously had a major impact on a lot of businesses. However, Vagabond is still pushing away. I think you're currently doing some renovations, if I'm correct there, right?
Yeah, the Lesser's working on the kitchen right now.
Yeah.
So I think they were closed in January, which we're at the end of January. So
Yeah.
he was working on getting a new menu up and going and that kind of stuff.
That's exciting. I live in Chesterfield County, and Amanda Chase was the senator here. Talk to me a little bit about your experiences with Chesterfield County. Did you have a rapport relationship with Amanda? Just curious of kind of like, I want to kind of work up to the campaign, but I want to kind of go before that. Like, what was going on in your mind that contributed to you saying, "Hey, I want to step up the plate and put myself in a position to be an elected official"?
So I guess I'll just start back when we moved to Chester. I was already going to Catholic school in Petersburg. I did K through 6 in Greenville County public schools, and then my parents, starting in 7th grade, put me and I guess a couple of parents' kids in Catholic school in Petersburg. So we were driving up, and then my dad moved to Richmond
Mm-hmm.
with a job, and then we moved to Chester because it was halfway
Yeah.
between Richmond and Petersburg. I just continued going to Catholic school, and so I grew up at that point from those years. I guess I was in 8th grade when we moved. So 8th grade through high school, I was in Chester, and then went to VMI and had a lot of VMI friends from Chester. And then when I came out of law school, I moved back to Richmond. So most of my involvement was in the city of Richmond at that point. I lived in the fan for about 20 years, I think.
Mhm.
And then I was at the time when they asked me to run for SD15, I was the chairman of the Richmond Republican Party. It's
Mhm.
called the Richmond City Committee, whatever, but
Yeah.
basically the Richmond Republicans. And so moving back to Chester, which I was kind of ready for a change. I've been in the city a long time. I'm just ready for a change, and I'm about a mile from my parents now. They're getting a little bit older, so it's good for me to be nearby. I'm only 20 minutes from the city anyway, so it was a it was a good change. But I knew Amanda and I knew Glenn Sturdivant,
Mm-hmm.
both of them, so I didn't really get involved in that race at all.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, by the time I got in, their primary was about over.
Yeah.
And so Jim Engel is the supervisor here in the Bermuda district in Chesterfield County, where I live, and I actually known him since high school or just after high school, early VMI years.
Yeah.
Great guy. And then Carrie Coiner, got to know her pretty well during the campaign. And so my experience in Chesterfield has been pretty positive. Of course, I did a lot of campaigning in the city, in the south side of the city, but also big time in the Hispanic community as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you wanted that's some segue into the
I
campaign.
do. I do. I want to I just wanted to start in Chesterfield, partly because I live here and partly because, I mean, I want to go, I want to look back at the campaign and because I want to also look forward to kind of discussing what your possible future political interests are. But there's a part of me that feels like you may have not won because of Chesterfield.
I mean, it's hard to maybe.
And again, I'm asking that question. There's no motive behind why I'm asking. We're working towards solutions, but it's interesting. I live right in between two key individuals within both parties that support the committees. And I did unbeknownst to you, I did my own. I'm always having these conversations. And so once I knew that she was once I knew you was a candidate, I did my part to share the positive things I knew about your name to people within the community that I knew that was very engaged. And so that's kind of why I come from that space and saying, like, Chesterfield being so big, would you agree that Chesterfield is very key to this, to potentially to winning this district? When you look back at your work and where you spent your time, Richmond and wherever else, I guess, I'm looking and saying, hey, let's look at Chesterfield for a minute. How vital do you see Chesterfield as being key to the success of winning this district?
I think it's very critical. I think you've got to do. I wanted my numbers to be higher in the city of Richmond, but they were a lot higher than people expected them to be. I did pretty well in Chester, which is where my parents are from, and my dad's been, like I said, involved in the community for years, and people knew me and things like that. So those are kind of the areas where I think I did pretty well relatively. And then, like you said, some of the other areas where I don't, I just don't know as much. I didn't get out there enough. You can only do so much with a limited amount of time and a limited amount of resources. But yeah, those areas in the Dale district, I didn't really do very well in those areas. The Hispanic precinct, they call it the Hispanic precinct, whatever. I did pretty well in that one, but I think that was through a lot of the word of mouth spread pretty far on that one, I think. But yeah, absolutely. I think there's definitely work to be done.
I don't think people realize that. I don't want to I might not be completely accurate here. I didn't research this well, but to my knowledge, Chesterfield has become more Black than Richmond, I think. And there's a lot of people who live in Chesterfield who moved from Richmond. We're going through gentrification. And so when I look at like just the landscape of voters and people getting out to vote, Chesterfield has changed quite a bit, I feel like, in the past 4 to 5 years, with people moving from the city into Chesterfield and vice versa, just moving from other places. I know that in one of my most recent interviews with the mayor, which, by the way, we're having another one coming up soon. This is being pre-recorded tonight. He's doing his State of the City's speech, but I know that during COVID, this Richmond metropolitan area has grown, I think, at least about 20,000 folks by just people who have moved here from Northern Virginia and D.C. to work remotely jobs there. So when I look at this geographic climate of where voters are coming from, it's changed a lot.
It's becoming very multicultural.
Yeah.
I mean, Chesterfield's got one of the biggest Hispanic communities in the country. I think it's number 5.
Wow.
The Richmond metro area, but most of that's in Chesterfield County. I know, I was shocked. It's actually number 5, and that includes Houston, San Antonio, Phoenix.
Wow.
Richmond, this area is number 5 and growing.
I wonder why. I wonder what the goal is.
So I talked to a lot of different people about that, and because I met so many people in the campaign, and one thing I hear is that Richmond this area is the warmest area on the East Coast where they feel comfortable. That makes maybe some sense to some people.
Yeah.
And the county itself has been very accommodating and very helpful to the Hispanic community, especially with the language. People don't speak a whole lot of English.
Yeah.
But it's not just the Hispanic, like you said, it's the Black community, it's the Muslim community. There's a lot. The Indian community is very huge here. There's one of the we have the Indian community is huge in Chesterfield County. People don't realize that either. So I really love that because I just love learning about different cultures and
Hmm.
meeting different people from different walks of life. That was one of the best parts of my campaign is just meeting all these different people from all these different areas. I didn't even know some of these areas existed. I just, maybe drive by them,
Yeah.
but you know,
Let me ask you a
I
question. Was you, go
I
ahead,
probably hadn't driven Route 1 from Richmond to Chester. I probably hadn't done that in 25 years.
yeah.
So I'm just going 95.
Was you born into a family that was political, and was you born into a family that was just were Republican? So you're gonna be a Republican, or how was that?
No, I was born in California, first of all. My dad was a hippie. He had basically dropped out of college and was doing rock promotion, band promotion.
Hmm.
He just promoted Clearwater, then Jimi Hendrix. The
Hmm.
big show with Jimi Hendrix was the headliner. And
Wow.
then, yeah, and then all kinds of drugs and stuff. And he just said, I've kind of had enough of this. Had like a religious epiphany and drove to Lake Tahoe, met my mom. His mom's from a military family. My grandfather was a fighter pilot in World War II. Came back and he was a Nazi POW. Got shot down as a Nazi POW. Came back and then worked for the Force Department. Ultimately, ended up in D.C. getting promoted all the way up to the top of that agency. So I don't know if that's political, but he was never a political appointee. He was at the top of the non-political appointee.
Okay.
And no, my mom was a teacher, so she was more. I think she voted for Jimmy Carter in 1980.
Yeah.
And no, so it was interesting. All my political stuff just comes from me making observations over the years.
Yeah.
I don't get pigeonholed into anything.
Got it. So, I grew up in North Carolina, and like, I'm kind of a pro business type of person. I'm a conservative person, but I'm an independent person too. Like I voted for both Republicans and Democrats over my lifetime. Being married has began to make some influential changes in how I start looking at politics, just because I realize that we make decisions together in a lot of circumstances on what's the best interest for our family. So we have a lot of interesting political debates in my household, but I'm the type of person that enjoys having political conversation with both Republicans and Democrats, and I feel fairly objective because I don't really feel like I don't really feel like a lot of people who look like me belong to parties. I think that's a strong position. I think that's a strong statement because there's some bona fide people out here of color that feel like they're Democrats at the core. And I know folks who are of color that feel like they're Republicans, and they're entitled to feel that however they feel. I just feel like I'm a Black American in this world. And I just don't know that I feel like any party per se fully represents me. I just don't like being forced to have to choose this or that, because sometimes I like this and that. That's me. But growing up when I was a kid, I seen two different types of Republicans. I seen Republicans that I felt like were classic, just conservative Republicans. And then I seen individuals that um, were, let's say, white Americans, right? Who I felt, based on the community I lived in and where I grew up, was more in line with me. And sometimes I struggled at seeing where their political views were different. Not saying that mine were Democratic. I'm not saying that. I'm just trying to see, like, how are we different? I used to say, growing up, how are we different? Other than you being white and I'm Black, like, I don't understand your political views sometimes because you're not coming from wealth. If anything, you're in worse circumstances than me. Like, I think there are categories. I think so to my point, if you drive throughout the country, and sometimes I'm in a car, I can be driving through some very, you know, low economic areas where you see some Republican signs. And sometimes I don't understand what that means. I don't get it. Can you recognize do you understand where I'm going with that?
I think so. I think it's
Because they don't have no money. I'm talking about people who have absolutely no money, poor than dirt, I mean, for the best way of saying it without not no intention to be disrespectful, but I'm saying sometimes I don't understand their political position on things when they're broke, you know. And as you answer this question, okay, I want to, I want to kind of throw in this also, like particularly in this new day, because now you got Republicans and then you got the Trump Republicans, and those are two different type of Republicans. There are. I mean, the party in itself don't always even support each other. I mean, I think their party is more divided now than I've ever seen it in my lifetime. So I'm just curious, like, if you can speak to what you see as a Republican and as a political candidate here in the future, when you're out trying to rally in votes, how do you distinguish the difference between a person who's a Republican and a person who's only aligning with the party partially, maybe out of some type of racism? And
Well,
that's a
there's a lot
mouthful.
there. There's a lot there. So let me start by this.
Yeah.
I've always been less into politics than I am into policies and policies in terms of what is going to better us all, right? And obviously some people benefit more from some policies than others, and that just and some people are more advantageous to take advantage of policies than others. But overall, I'm more into policies than I am politics. I think the Republicans generally, not always, but generally have the better policies, but not the best messengers. And the Democrats, I think most of their policies these days, personally, I think they're terrible, but they are very good with the messaging and the marketing. And for example, they talk about abortion being reproductive health care. It's not reproductive health care. Can we just have an honest discussion about what it really is? It's about a woman's right to choose to terminate a pregnancy. That's the real issue. It's not nothing reproductive about an abortion, but they spin that, and it works. And Republicans don't come up with anything in response, so they dominate the issue. So I think Republicans have, not in all cases, but generally have and it changes over time too. I mean, things can evolve and change. Like you said, I think Republicans generally have the better policies, but they've not had the best messengers. And in terms of the Republican Party being a more inclusive, I think it does, I think that somewhere along the lines there was like, I don't think it was explicit, but basically Republicans just kind of said, all right, I'm not going to even try in the cities. And I know we're minority driven. And the Democrats said, I'm just going to let the suburbs go to the Republicans. And then for a while, it kind of went along those lines. And neither group really tried to recruit the other. And then, which is always one of my issues with the Republican Party, is like, that's why I was the chairman of the city committee, because I'm like, our policies will benefit the city tremendously if we get in there and you have to go and talk to people. And I think so. I'll tell you what's interesting for me. So I told you about my background being very just different, and so at the time when I was in Emporia, and I lived in a neighborhood that was all white, and my parents didn't really know anything. But that's where the realtor took them to go get a house, and and most of the kids in my neighborhood, the white kids went to I think yeah, probably most of them went to a school called Brunswick Academy, which was all white at the time. So there were two school buses that came to my neighborhood: the Brunswick Academy bus and the Griffith County. My parents didn't really understand the race stuff, but they didn't like the idea of me going to school that was all white. So I went to public schools, which was almost all black. So in the school, I had all my friends in school who were almost all black. I come home in my neighborhood, they were almost all white. And so I'm like young. My parents don't know anything about any of this because in Montana, there aren't a whole lot of black people in Montana.
Mm-hmm.
So she was just new to I was all just new to her. And my dad's in California, and they're like, yeah, they were hippies and, just lovebird kind of things. And so they were trying to improve the public schools. Like, my mom was a teacher in the public schools. My dad became PTA president. But one of the things that struck me was, so I'll never forget, I think I was in third grade when Ronald Reagan got elected and it was being inaugurated. They put it on the TV. And all the black kids in my classroom were kind of like, pointing air guns at, just had to just did not like Reagan at all. In fact, he was getting elected. And then some of the white kids in my neighborhood, they were not a whole lot, but there were some racist white kids in my neighborhood. They were supporting the same person. So to me, it's like, all right, here I've got some of my black friends in public school who are like pointing air guns at Ronald Reagan. And then there's white kids in my neighborhood that are, pretty much racist. Also, so when they were supporting this guy, and when they were Democrats, they were mad. So they were actually, so they were supporting. That's what was weird. They were supporting the Democrats, because back then all I guess the party kind of switched along somewhere. So that's what struck me. I was sitting there thinking like these people who are opposites are rooting for the same team in this, and like doesn't make any sense to me. Where did this come from? How did this start? How did this become this way? And my dad would bring stuff up, and people would pull him aside, and like, you can't talk about those issues in public. We don't. That's sensitive. And he's like, how are you going to have a conversation if you don't talk about it?
Yeah.
So it's just. But I also would say, I was also Catholic, and there weren't a whole lot of Catholics there either. And my dad would have some of the like Baptist friends who would want him to go to the liquor store and buy liquor so they wouldn't be seen going inside the ABC store. And Catholics, whatever, we don't have a problem with alcohol. So anyway, just all these hypocrisies everywhere. I think they contributed to I had to kind of figure this stuff out as I went along. And so back to your bigger question, I think that all of what you think right now, it's all being blended. It's all getting, I think we're in the beginnings of a new phase where what you identified with previously party-wise. First of all, people treat it like it's a football game. It's not a football game. Just because you don't need to be a Ravens fan, always a Ravens fan, or a Steelers fan, always a Steelers fan. It's not about that. It's about the best policies for today. The best policies for yesterday might not be the best policies for today. So they have to evolve too. And ultimately, we need the best policies and the best people to prevail so that we can pull ahead as a society. That's kind of a long answer.
I mean, so are you saying that you feel that I'm always a Lakers fan, man. I don't know if there's no change in me being a Lakers fan.
But it's different in sports. Politics shouldn't be like that,
But with politics, you're saying that, hey, once a Democrat doesn't mean you're always a Democrat, I guess. We see people. Yeah. We see it from occasionally.
Well, so that was so I feel like when I get out in the community, I spent a lot of time especially in all the minority communities. There are a lot of people out there whose values line up more with the Republican Party, but for some reason they identify with being a Democrat. That's what I had one conversation with this guy for like 30 minutes on his front porch on a Sunday. He's like, I haven't voted for Republicans since the 70s. I'm like, all right, well, can we talk about it? And we had a really good conversation. And at the end of it, he said, you know what? I'm going to vote for you. You've been my first Republican I'll vote for since, like the 70s. And so I don't know. I think that ultimately we need the best policies to prevail. And it's just gotten so partisan. I mean, it can't continue this way or we're all going to sink. The rest of the world is laughing at us because we're destroying ourselves.
How do you feel about our current governor and what do you think about the upcoming potential presidential? Are you a supporter of Trump?
I mean, I do like his policies. I mean, I don't think anyone is a supporter of Trump personally as a person. I think he was better as an entertainer when he was funny.
Yeah.
It just doesn't really translate over. Of course, he's become such a lightning rod, and there's so much stuff said about him. It's hard to know. I don't know him. I really don't know who he is personally.
Yeah, that's kind of why I said in the beginning. Like, I feel like you got Trump supporters. I feel like from the outside looking in, completely the outside looking in, I meet more and more people who, to some degree, feel like he's embarrassing the party.
Well, he does say things that are embarrassing, but also you have the national media that jumps on it and will play it over in a loop 100 times over. And I will say this, if you talk to like the gay Republicans, they will say that Trump is the first person that ever let them take part in the party platform. He actually changed the platform, and when he had his 2016 convention, they actually had a real role, and then he gave him a real, not a token role, he gave him a real role in the government. So And in the black community, the criminal justice stuff he did was not conservative, not typical, not classic conservative at all. Not something a George Bush would have done or any of the other. So in some ways, he was very progressive on some of those issues, but then he would say something stupid, and that's the only thing that people would talk about. So it gets overshadowed.
Yeah.
So he's kind of in his own category. I'll just leave that over there. I do like support most of his policies, including the criminal justice stuff, which I really supported. And I like the fact that he was from a city, so he understands city issues.
Yeah.
It was more involved. I mean, some of the programs he put forward were really did a lot to help cities. So he's so controversial, and so I don't know the guy. I wouldn't want to have dinner with him. He's not, I wouldn't want to be on a podcast with him, talk to him like I am with you. But so I just put him aside. I do like most of his policies, not all. I don't like his style, and whatever. It's
Yeah, you have any thoughts about our current Governor Youngkin here in Virginia? How would you grade from your perspective, looking in how he's doing right now?
So I was a supporter from Youngkin from the very beginning. When he first, I was on board with Youngkin. When I was a chairman, city committee, Richmond City chairman. I got behind him in January of 2021 when he first, not long after he announced. I saw him. He came out. We went to oh man, I dropped a blank on the name. But he did a thing out of Manchester, and it was cold. It was like hardly anybody showed up. And he stood there and talked in the cold and in the dark, for like about 45 minutes. I'm like, wow, this guy seems real, genuine. So I liked what he was doing. I liked what he was talking about. I liked his policies. I think he's pro business, pro common sense for the most part. You're not going to agree with everybody on everything. You're not supposed to. So in terms of how he's done, I think that I don't think he has all the right people in his administration, frankly.
Yeah.
I think if he had more of the people to help him get elected, and less of the people that are kind of the party hangers on,
Yeah.
he might be more effective.
Yeah.
I don't think he's been a bad governor. I think he's tried to work across the aisle, I think, but I guess one thing I didn't like is that I don't think he's been fair to cannabis, which is something I'm pro cannabis,
Yeah.
especially on the hemp side. Hemp is such an incredible plant.
Yeah.
So they took a lot of those products out of the market with some of the things that passed, and I think it took effect last July.
Yeah.
So no one's perfect, but overall, I think he's been a pretty decent governor.
So what can we see from you and your future political plans?
So I enjoyed running. I enjoyed meeting people. I enjoyed talking to people, hearing what they have to say, and trying to talk about common sense. I'm a big person. I'm like public parks is one of my things, and I see littering is all over. My grandfather was in the Department of Forestry. He was part of that Give a Hoot Don't Pollute campaign. When he was in D.C. when that was launched, and so that was ingrained to me growing up. And I just see littering. So I'm sensitive to that issue. I maybe notice it more than other people do. I feel like, there's if you can't have a clean place, especially for young people, you look around, you see trash all over the place. What's that going to do? That's demoralizing.
Yeah.
And our public parks have gone down, and they're not. I don't think they're being. We have some great. The James River Park system is amazing.
Yeah.
Pocahontas Parkway. I mean, Pocahontas Park out here and Chesterfield is amazing. I don't think they're being improved and maintained the way they should be, and so.
I bike all through them.
Yeah, so I think that those are so I love talking to people about stuff like that and working on different issues, and I think I'll probably definitely run again at some point, but we'll have to wait and see what that's going to be.
Do you have I'm not really familiar with it, but spend some time down at General Assembly. I see a lot of people lobbying with gaming. These gas stations and places where you see the gaming things. Like there's a lot of gaming bill stuff out there that seems like it causes a lot of controversy. Do you have any knowledge on that?
Yeah, I do actually. Herbie Sadler was a big proponent of that. Those the skill games they call them. My thing is, if people want to play games, I can go bet on my phone.
Yeah.
I was for the casino project too that got shot down. People
Yeah.
would talk to me, oh, we don't need another casino. I'm like, I got a casino on my phone. I can go blow money on a basketball game tonight if I want.
Yeah.
Handle. But people are going to gamble wherever they want to gamble.
Yes.
But these skill games for these small businesses and these gas stations, they're being shut down because they know you have some special interests that want to come in and monopolize everything. And they don't want these little mom and pop stores to have them. They want to be able to control the whole industry, which I think is terrible.
Yeah.
Whenever you have central control over any industry, it's terrible. But a lot of these like convenience stores make sometimes that's the difference between them making all their bills that month or not, if they have that extra revenue.
Yeah.
And you hate to see a place that's all games in there.
Yeah.
The same on the other hand, if people enjoy playing them. Look, I used to love going I had a paper route when I was a kid. So I always had, cash because I would always go those days you had to go collect your own money.
Yeah.
You paid your bill. I was kind of like a little entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So yeah, I blew my little route up, back in the day. And so one of my favorite things to do was to go, take my $20 real cash in for quarters and spend 7-Eleven playing video games.
Yeah.
My mom hated it, but that was whatever you want to do. I think it's I guess I'm kind of libertarian in that sense. And
Yeah. It's America, right?
yeah, if that's what you want to do, go do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
You're not hurting anybody else.
Yeah. All right, Hayden. So as I close interviews, I like to ask random impulsive questions. I'll be mindful and respectful, particularly with your profession, to not ask anything that's gonna expose you, but I'm gonna ask you just random questions without a lot of thought to kind of, help humanize and give people a personal like a little insight on who you are, okay? So, you're a restaurant guy, you like food, you like to cook a little bit. Are you on any of like, do you eat pork, beef? Do you eat whatever you want, or do you like have a rigid type of eating lifestyle, vegetarian, vegan? Particularly since COVID, people they have a title for all the different types of diets that they have now. Or do you just eat bacon and whatever the hell you want?
I try to avoid anything that's high fat, and I try to avoid fried food altogether, and I
Mhm.
try to limit red meat. Although I think some of the criticism of red meat may be overstated. There's different kinds of red meat. There's lean red meat, and there's not lean red meat. So yeah, I try to eat healthier.
Mhm.
I don't really avoid anything in particular. I really don't eat bacon. It's too greasy for me.
So you put food in the microwave and you do microwave stuff.
Sometimes I try to avoid anything processed.
You gotta
That's my
eliminate.
try to avoid processed foods.
Gotcha. When you was young, Hayden, younger, you're still a young man, but when you was younger, Hayden, okay, who was your celebrity childhood crush?
Childhood crush. Um, wow. I think everybody like Wonder Woman.
Keep it safe, right? You keep it safe, okay? If you could sit down and have dinner with 5 people dead or alive, who would it be?
Dead or alive?
Dead or alive?
Dead or alive?
5 people that you would have at your table, dead or alive.
Jesus, number one, obviously.
Yep.
Um,
Now Jesus is going to dictate. It may
I
that
might have that conversation down the road anyway.
say that again.
May have that conversation down the road anyway. Hopefully, maybe right. Um,
That's going to affect the whole table now. Now, Jesus being
yeah,
the person at the table, everyone else going to have to.
right, exactly. Um, I think Socrates, Plato. I think going back way back, those are some. They have a really. St. Thomas Aquinas is another one. Um,
You're going here. All right, go ahead. This,
um,
this is different than anyone else I've ever asked. Go ahead.
yeah, no, I mean these are. If you want to sit down with somebody from the big time philosophical people who really spent their whole lifetimes
Yeah,
digging deep into these issues. I'm
yeah,
a deep person, so I'm going to try and pick somebody who's I can really learn something from.
yeah.
Um, let's see,
Yeah, Trump.
contemporary.
You don't want Trump at the table with you guys?
Nah, dude, I can't believe I'm gonna have to. I can't believe we're going to do this all over again. But um, it is what it is.
Yeah.
No, but no, I think there's enough stuff out on him. You don't need to go sit with him on the table. Um, I think Abraham Lincoln would be fascinating.
Okay.
George Washington would be fascinating if you talk about and then going way back. Um, Steve Jobs.
Mm. Yeah. Okay.
That's a
That's
good, I think it's a pretty good list.
yeah, that'd be good. That's a good list right there. That's a good list. What's your favorite sport?
Probably football.
By the time this comes out, we may or may not know who our Super Bowl champion is going to be. What's your favorite team? Same, it's in the same.
The Commanders, and
Who's
sadly, the Commanders.
oh my God, yeah, it's
I
tough.
mean, the
It's tough.
Commodore, whatever you want to call them.
Who's your Super Bowl prediction? Let's see if it comes out true. Go put it on.
I'll predict San Francisco by 3.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. You've lived in the city quite a bit. You're very familiar with the city, obviously. Just curious on what your predictions look like for a potential future mayor of the city. What do you think the city needs in that person? And do you feel like there's a person that is ideally groomed to take that seat?
I think that what the city needs is somebody who's not interested in further politics, or which is maybe hard to find, but somebody who's interested in local issues, who's interested in not the broader political philosophies and the policies that again work for the city itself.
Mhm.
We need to get back to common sense. I think
Mhm.
that is missing, and we need to get back to the fundamentals. And so, um, and we need to get back to good governance. I mean, they got the water bills are insane. They can't get the water bills right. All the stuff that came out of the meals taxes not
Yeah.
being right. We got to get back to the fundamentals.
Yeah.
We need somebody if it's like a sport, we need somebody who's gonna get back to the X's and O's,
Mhm.
and focus on that kind of stuff and the nuts and bolts.
Mhm.
Um, and that's and it's not trying to look to use it as a springboard to their next office.
Got it. Got it. Are you a New Year's resolution person?
I try to make New Year's resolutions.
What was your goal for 2024?
So my goal for 2024, I mean, I continue my workout schedule, keep it strong, which has been pretty good the last couple of years since
Mhm.
COVID. More important, I think. I think I taught us a lesson. You got to be in, can't be. You got to be ready for whatever's coming. If you're not taking care of yourself physically, mentally, spiritually, you can't bring your best self to others.
Yeah.
So I think that's always important. And then, I want to take all these experiences I had from 2023 and build on them. And the thing about campaigning is you get to know people so quick, but then you're on to the next one. So I want to go back and reconnect with a lot of these different people I
Yeah.
met on and spend more time. When especially when I'm not a candidate and they're not looking at me as a candidate,
Yeah.
more like a person to person discussion like we're doing right now. And I want to do more of this stuff.
Yeah. I think that and I really do believe that you have a solid. I think that you have you seem to me to have all the makings of what could be a good elected official. And I didn't say politician. I didn't say politician. I think
Thank
that
you.
you're very human. You seem like you kind of just meet people where they are, very personable. Um, and I think it's interesting with the 5 people that you kind of put at the table. To me, it seemed like, I mean, so you didn't study political science?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, I would figure. Like, you seem like this is kind of what you want to do. Did you ever think that this was going to be the path he was going to take years ago, 20 years ago?
I knew I would gravitate into this area at some point, and I think I don't know if I wanted to do running for office part. Like I said, I'm really more into policy
Hmm.
than I am politics, but I'm into people and people's about politics. But I'm
Hmm.
not into snapshots and the sound bites kind of thing. I'm more into like the deeper conversations and the deeper.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. We could go on because as we've been having this conversation, I've been thinking about what would be a soundbite. But you're definitely a deep thinker. You're definitely a deep thinker. There's layers to you, and obviously that probably only contributes to you being successful as an attorney. And thinking things through. And so, final question I have for you is kind of kind of a double question. First off, thank you for being a guest on the show. Kind of want to collect your thoughts as we close the show. And if there's, make sure you also share where people can learn more about your practice and you. But also, I know this is like a whammy here. It's like a few things, and if there's someone that you think that would also be a good future guest on the show, who would you suggest?
Let me think about who to suggest. I definitely had a lot of different people come to mind.
Yep.
Thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. It's been
Yep.
a great conversation,
Thank
and
you.
it's great to have the conversation with you. too as well. I mean, we haven't had a deep conversation like this,
Yeah, yeah.
and I love doing this kind of stuff. And so thanks for having me.
You're more than
Uh,
welcome to come. You're more than welcome to come back. Also,
Thanks.
you're more than welcome to come back.
And I like to, as I get my podcast going, that's going to go for 2024. Because I started at Kim Gray and I started one last year.
Yep.
Did a couple episodes, and the next thing I was running for state senate.
Yeah.
And so kind of on the back burner. I'd like to pick that up again. I'd love to have you on.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I love it. I love having conversation. A lot of times I ask questions that I try to ask questions that I think other people won't. Not so much me. Like I'm not from Richmond, I'm not from Virginia, and I recognize that I'm not as passionate on a lot of issues that people are. I'm objective. I really just passionate about conversation. I, I don't always even have an opinion on either side or the other. I'm more or less just interested in hearing the different sides of the opinion, and over time, you know, kind of gravitating to figuring out what my position is. But yeah, most definitely, and I think you and Kim Gray would be an excellent show. I'm interested to see Kim Gray come back into the politics scene at some point as well.
I would love for her to run as mayor, but I don't think she's going to.
I think I think that if
She would be really good, especially for especially X's and O's and that kind of thing.
I feel like if there was a good time to put her name into it, it would be right now, because I just don't feel like there's a clear. She has a name, she has a face, she has a reputation, she has I mean, another person I think that could be a good candidate for mayor is Jeff Bourne. I think he has the resume. He worked for Dwight Jones. He's been a delegate for somewhere between 6 and 8 years.
I've heard that name actually.
Yeah, Jeff
I don't know
Bourne.
if that's because somebody just saying he should run or he was
Well,
actually thinking about it.
well, I mean, I think that he stepped down from being a delegate. He wants to spend more time with his children. I asked him about it. I just asked him outright why he had a solid chance of being reelected. He stepped down on his own because his children are growing up, and he felt like he was missing some time. But if you just look at his resume, he's an attorney. He's worked for Dwight Jones. He was successful as a delegate, I think, in Henrico County. I think his district, he probably has some of Richmond, some Henrico County, but he lives in the city. I think when I look at the potential people who's going to run for mayor, I just don't see anyone he has the resume suited for it.
Right.
Alexis Rogers, I asked her if she was going to run for mayor. She's not running for mayor. I know she's been in it a couple times. So I don't know. I'm interested to see what the future holds. I'm ready to have a conversation with them.
Well, yeah, because it's going to be February with Thursday, February.
Yeah.
Whoever's going to do it needs to jump in quick.
You need to now's the time. Stoney's obviously already out here campaigning for governor. So,
Right.
somebody needs to go ahead and, and it'll be interesting to see if he endorses anybody as well. Every time I've interviewed him, I've asked him that, sometimes I'm getting ahead of it. He'll say, well, I still need to focus on my job at hand and do what I'm doing. But he's supposed to come on here in a couple of weeks. And so
Right.
I'm going to ask him again. I'm going to ask him
He'll
again.
probably give you the same answer.
He can't. I think this being the last time I interview him in a mayor seat, probably. I gotta go a little bit more harder on him. So I need you guys who's listening to the show submit your questions, because we got to corner him down and get as much out of him as we possibly can, though. But yeah, man, this has been a great conversation. Thank you again, man, for introducing me to your 212 group. Let's shout them out. I'm very excited about that.
River City Resources.
Say it again.
Yeah. River City Resources. Yep.
Yeah, River City Resources. Let's shout them out, and I probably have a few of those people in the show, I'm sure, over time as well. It seems like it's a phenomenal network. You can attend multiple groups and expand your network and meet a ton of people, and so I'm really excited about that. Thank you for allowing me to come on your behalf. And yeah, man, we're gonna have more of these conversations. And again, I truly look forward to seeing your future political path, and also seeing how I can be a supporter and helping you with anything to spread the word on who you are, what you're doing, and what your purpose is. So let people know before you go where they can learn more about you at.
We get on my law website, which is www.fisherlawrva.com. And in my Hayden Fisher for Senate.com. I think it may still be up. I think it is still up actually.
Mhm.
But Hayden Fisher, I need to update. I need to read in my legal website, but there's a lot of information there. Hayden Fisher or Fisher Law RVA.com.
And I don't plan on getting in any trouble, but if I do, I'll be sure to reach out to you.
Right. All right, Randy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you. This has been the Randy Wilson Podcast. Remember, this podcast is played everywhere podcasts are played. You can go over to randywilsonpodcast.com. You can also follow me on Instagram and all social media platforms at Randy Wilson Podcast.